The Unplayable Podcast is proudly presented by Qantas, the official podcast partner and the official airline partner of Cricket Australia. Once again this season, Qantas is proud to be flying Australia's cricketers as they take on the world.
Let's get it on, Gilly. This is Pat Cummins. This is Australia.
One of the worst things I have ever seen done on a cricket field. Good night.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Unplayable Podcast. We're coming to you from Great Barrier Reef Arena in Mackay, where we've just seen yet another two-day test completed here on Australian shores. Josh Schonafinger is my name, joined by Louis Cameron. Bangladesh were bowled out for under 100 in both innings for the first time in their history, and it was a pretty meek finish to the test, unfortunately, for the Bangladesh fans.
Yeah, and it would feel ordinarily like a two-day test, historic occasion. I think it was the shortest test in 80 years in Australia,
Wow.
But we've been in this exact same position in 3 of 7 tests in Australia now. So this is increasingly becoming the norm, all for different reasons, which we can kind of go into. The biggest overriding factor, I think, today was Bangladesh's inability to cope with the conditions. Although Australia didn't fare that much better, it must be said. It's remarkable they've won this test by making 210. It's one of the lowest totals to ever achieve an innings victory. Just an overall kind of disappointing feeling kind of coming out of this test,
Yeah.
I'd say. Would you agree with that, Josh?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, yes, they had the excitement of all the wickets, but as everybody rocked up here today, it was pretty obvious early on that the game was going to finish today. And, a lot of tickets have been sold for day 3 and day 4. So it's all this local crowd who don't get to see Test cricket ever, really. I mean, I'm sure they're disappointed. And, yeah, the way it sort of finished was a bit flat for cricket fans as well. Although I'm sure the rusted-on Aussie fans, and we have a lot of those who listen to this podcast, they would have loved the way that the Aussies were clinical in the way that they finished off Bangladesh.
Yeah, sure. Cheering heartily at every Bangladeshi wicket to be blown away by the conditions. I mean, it's kind of what we feared might be the case ahead of this series. Like, this is historically what happens when Bangladesh come to really bouncy wickets. It didn't happen in Darwin because we didn't get that bouncy wicket. Not taking anything away from how they played there, but this was it felt like a restoration of normal transmission. Guys kind of getting their gloves blown off and, pushing too hard, closing the face on balls, and they're flying to the slips court. And, I really hope in the wash up of all this that Pete Kazakov's wicket doesn't kind of get tarnished with, the brush of doom that, MCG, pitchforks, where, Matt Page, all that kind of stuff like that. That wasn't the case here. I thought, everyone who played on that wicket, I think bar Najmal Shanto, had positive things to say about it. And even I heard him on the TV broadcast just now. He was kind of saying it was a challenging wicket for both teams, to be honest. And I think his exact meaning might get lost in translation a bit. English isn't the first language of a lot of these guys, and I think sometimes they struggle to communicate exactly what they mean. So I don't think anyone's suggesting the wicket was, subpar or anything like that.
Okay, and Pat Cummins certainly said at his press conference as well that he thought it was a fair pitch, and just a lot of different circumstances that brought us to a finish inside effectively 5 sessions. So not a lot of Test cricket for us to report on, but there were some highlights today, and we should start with Mitch Starc, who was player of the match, 10 wickets for the match, and 10 for 51, I think, were his match figures after
Best figures at home for him.
Best figures at home, that's right. His best is 11 for 94 in Gaul, and the 4th time he's taken a 10-wicket haul. He took 2 wickets in 2 balls at one point at the start of the second innings, and that made his match figures 8 for 16 at that moment in time. Just numbers that don't sound real, Lou.
No, exactly right. It was a bit like I saw someone refer to Bangladesh's scorecard yesterday as the start of a phone helpline or something like that, which made me laugh. And overall, I mean, Starc was the best, and he's probably always going to be the most difficult for batters who are so out of their comfort zone. Like, he's the most extreme. He's one of the tallest. He swings at the most, and he bowls the fullest and the fastest. So that was probably always likely to be the case. But I think the overarching kind of feeling was that we got the cartel back to winning Australia Test matches. Like, it must be reiterated. Australia made 210 in this game on a wicket that they're saying was perfectly good. That's a poor performance I would say in their eyes. And the cartel went to work and got it done. I thought Cummins today was particularly good. He was good yesterday, but felt like he got into a really nice rhythm, was allowed to bowl at top order batters for as long as you possibly could in this match. If you're an Australian bowler, getting that kind of trademark bounce and lift that I think, wasn't quite there for him in Darwin, probably due to the conditions. So it was them back in more familiar territory, and having all those guys humming ahead of the South Africa tour is pretty promising. We were watching Scott Boland touch up some poor. I think they're North Queensland locals or Central Queensland locals. The kids who've been doing the drinks for the Aussies this week.
Yeah.
He got the opportunity, let's put it, to face Scott Boland in the nets during I think the lunch break, and that looked like hard work. So when a guy like him can't get a game, watch out.
We see a lot of net bowlers coming into the Aussie squad and try out their stuff against the Aussie batters. Well, maybe we're going to see some more net batters just to get the Aussies fit and firing. It was a good point on Cummins because he took 3 wickets in both innings. He said afterwards that he felt really good, hinted that he might play 1 or 2 of the ODIs in the lead into that South Africa series. But that 3-test series against South Africa in South Africa is only 5 weeks away. So it's going to come up really quickly. And as you said, good signs that they're all fully fit.
Yeah, definitely. I've got to say, I felt like a real fraud passing judgment on Australia's bowlers. We're just in the broadcast kind of compound, makeshift broadcast compound here at Mackay, and Glenn McGrath, Jason Gillespie and Phil Jakes have just walked by. I think they're doing their own little recording over there. So we probably could have deferred to Dizzy and Pigeon for that one. But yeah, Pat Cummins back in the ODI team by the sounds of it. I think he said in that press conference there he'd maybe play up to 3 of those ODIs. He could probably do that just in South Africa if he wanted to take the Zimbabwe first leg of that off, and it'd work out quite nicely for him. I think he kind of turned to the media manager at one point and said, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that the focus will be on the red ball stuff. Look, we know.
I think that's fair.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's how they've treated ODI cricket in the past as for the fast bowlers, a really good step up in intensity. I think the big thing that you can't replicate in the nets is just that, needing to find that extra gear that you do get in the game. ODIs can be challenging on the body in terms of it's 10 overs and, you got to hit your top kind of gear straight away. So that's exciting. I think Pat's played 2 ODIs. He's a captain, remember, 2 ODIs since the last World Cup. So he could double his tally. Yeah. Well, and it's a sign of where cricket is going, and, he's played a lot more in the IPL, for example, in that instance. Yeah. It's just the way of the world. So that'll be good. Be good to see some old school ODI cricket because they've got a World Cup in those conditions about 12 months later.
Well, from the cartel to the spin bowler, Nathan Lyon bowled 11 overs today, and I'm sure the Australian coaching panel will be delighted that he looked like he had some of his rhythm back today. He got these trademark bounce on these Queensland pitches. Finished with 3 wickets. He got the wicket of Najmal Shanto as well, with one that just got the better of the Bangladeshi captain there. I think he was trying to go over cover and ended up scooping it straight to Mitch Starc at long off. So 3 wickets under Lyon's belt, even though it looked like he might not be required to bowl at all in this innings. So that's a real positive sign for him, considering, as we touched on in earlier podcasts, he was somewhat on the chopping block for this test. Yeah, exactly right. The breeze kind of shifted a little bit today. I think the end that Mitch Starc was bowling from, the kind of TV broadcast end, went, the wind was right behind him yesterday. Today it was, I think, slightly into him. It was still kind of coming across from the eastern side of the ground, so it was still helping his swing, but all of a sudden he was kind of coming into it slightly, and I think that helped Lyon with that dismissal. That Shanto thought he could kind of get inside the line of it, get kind of inside enough that he could push it over cover, but that drift just meant the ball was always following him, and he ended up middling it, but just straight down the throat of long off. So we kind of watched the replay, what was he trying to do there? It just looked like he was trying to chip a catch in the end to exactly where Mitchell Starc was standing. Yeah, I mean, I think the jury's out on so much of everyone in this series. It felt like we kind of leave with more questions than answers in some regards, given firstly you get this blip in Darwin that it is going to go down as an all-time aberration game, right? Like Bangladesh have lost 3 innings. I feel like I repeated this a bit, but it does bear repeating. Like they've had 3 innings defeats in their last 4 red ball matches, and Darwin. So Australia can probably point to that one being an outlier. And then here, like their batters only got one chance at it. The bowlers, we already knew the bowlers were awesome in bouncy home conditions. So no surprises there. But the questions remain over the top order. Not sure if I mentioned it off the top, but the final margin was an innings and 51 runs. Bangladesh just crawled their way to the tea break, and then Nathan Lyon wrapped up the final 2 wickets inside 3 balls at the start of that session. So if we had known, we could have just not bothered with the tea break and played on, couldn't we? I wanted to just touch on Shoriful Islam as well, who started the day with one of the better in-swinging Yorkers you're going to see to capture the wicket of Cameron Green. It was his 7th for the innings. He finished with 7 for 48. The best figures by a Bangladesh paceman, best figures by a visiting bowler in Australia since 1993. That was the stat you uncovered, Lou, and the best figures by a Bangladesh bowler in away tests of all time. So from someone who had the previous best bowling of about 3 for 30 in Test cricket, a hell of a performance from the left armour. And we saw him after play having a word to Mitch Starc as well, just maybe getting a few more tips as well.
Yeah, Mahedi Hassan as well, having a good chat to Nathan Lyon. So good to see the kind of counterparts there, all having a word to each other. The one stat you might not have included in there was that I think it was the best left arm match figures in Australia since 1870 or 1870, more than 100 years.
Okay,
yeah, we're getting closer to 150
by a
years.
visiting bowler or by any bowler?
Visiting left arm pace bowler. So there's a few caveats to that one, but this is what we like to do in cricket, and people,
we love the
enjoy
niche stuff.
that. And the previous best figures by a visiting pace bowler of any arm, right, left, or other, was Curtly Ambrose, the one you kind of mentioned there. So that was 1993. So that's pretty good company to keep.
Definitely.
You kind of think, I mean, it's a big if, but if Bangladesh had managed to kind of just scrape through a few more runs, maybe they could have put some pressure on Australia's batters, and they wasted an all-time bowling performance from Shoriful, really.
All right, Lou, I think that just about does us here from Mackay. We're going to try and scramble, get an early flight home. But another innings victory for Australia. This series finishes at 1-1. We saw Bangladesh posing with the trophy after the match as well, as if they'd won the series. So maybe they were just super happy with Darwin and they thought, it doesn't matter that we've drawn this. I think Australia must retain whatever
the
bilateral...
Javed Omar, Jason Gillespie trophy, yeah.
Because the last series was also 1-1, and then before that,
of course,
Australia won 2-0. So I think, you have to go back a long way.
We're going back to 2006 for that one?
I think we might have to.
Your Dan Cullen series, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right. So they've kept it on by virtue of something they did 2 decades ago.
There you go. And we mentioned Jason Gillespie well. He was critical to that victory. So there you go. 1-1 in this series. Thanks for joining us all on this daily episode of the podcast. A shame we couldn't bring you more episodes, but we will have plenty more during the week and in the lead into that huge South Africa series. So thanks to Qantas. This has been the Unplayable Podcast.